Welcome to the Confident Retirement Podcast. How confident are you when it comes to life's biggest money decisions? What is real financial peace and how can you get it? Kris Flaming and Mark Peachy are the founders of LPF Advisors in Sarasota, Florida. They bring together the brightest minds to show you how to have a more confident financial future. They empower listeners with common sense concepts and financial wisdom. And now, here are your hosts, LPF Advisors. Hey, I want to welcome everybody to the Confident Retirement Podcast brought to you by LPF Advisors. I'm your host here, as always, Kris Flaming. And today I have the pleasure of welcoming Patrick Barnes to the show. He is an attorney with Spinner Law Firm with headquarters in the state of Florida. They are in the personal injury, estate planning, and motor vehicle cases area of law, and their focus is to treat their clients like family and advocating for them to get an outcome that will help them move on and hopefully have a productive rest of their life. Patrick, thanks for being here. Welcome to the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So you have kind of an interesting background history. Could you maybe briefly just take me through how you got to where you are today?
Sure. I'm a Florida native. I was born and raised in Sarasota, Lakewood Ranch. I went to Florida State for undergrad and then a school called Florida Coastal in Jacksonville for law school. And then me and my then girlfriend, now wife, packed up and moved to Denver. In Denver for about 8 years. I practiced all plaintiff personal injury stuff out there, workers' comp, motor vehicle accidents, all kinds of personal injury. And then we had a son and another one on the way, and we realized we need to go back to home. And so we moved back, and happy to be back. And now, so our main office is in Wesley Chapel. I live in Land O'Lakes, but we do have an office in Lakewood Ranch, and we love serving both of those communities to the extent that we can, to the most we can, I guess.
Yeah, Denver's a good town, different climate, definitely in the winter.
We loved it, but all our most, I would say, almost all of our families back here, so we felt like, hey, we got to get back.
Yeah, the support system. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay, so kind of looking back, the stage you're at currently, if you could go back in time, maybe give the younger you some advice, something you know now that you wish you knew back then, what do you think that might be?
You mean like what I wish I knew coming out of law school or deciding to go?
It could be life advice coming out of law school, getting into business, getting into practice, just maybe something that you would tell the younger you if you could go back in time.
You know what I would tell the younger me is be patient. In addition to practicing law, I do a lot of speaking and writing on, and I have a podcast on lawyer mental health.
Okay.
And one of the things that most lawyers experience, especially in the first 3 years, is burnout. Mm-hmm. And burnout, often the first sign of burnout is disillusionment. And I think a lot of that disillusionment comes from unrealistic expectations coming into the profession. I'm going to come out and be a rock star. I'm going to make $1 trillion. I'm going to set my own schedule, all these things that are kind of misnomers about the profession. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that doesn't happen right away. And so patience would be the biggest thing, is like, have a long-term viewpoint on your practice as opposed to what you're going to do in like the first year, because
okay. I can tell you've done a lot of introspection to come to that conclusion.
Constantly.
Yeah. That somewhat affects our industry too, with burnout and hours that you're working, having a good work-life balance. I've actually done some talks on that before too. So I'm feeling what you're putting out there.
Yeah.
So how did you kind of come to selecting the focus of your practice or what the focus is of the firm that you work for and specializing in those areas? How did that happen?
I knew I wanted to be a litigator. I wanted to talk in front of people. I knew I wanted to be a problem solver, and I wanted to have an action-packed career. So that kind of knocked out a couple different types of law that I just wasn't interested in. And I came out in 2012, which was right around when everyone else was coming out of grad school after the 08, 09 recession. Yeah. The jobs were scarce. And I got a chance to take a pre-litigation paralegal position at a personal injury firm. And so I started there because that was a job that
Yeah.
allowed me to do that.
Right.
And I learned a lot and realized all those like must-haves, the litigating, the talking, the
Hmm.
problem solving, those are all in personal injury. And so it just was, it kind of fell in my
Yeah.
lap. I didn't go out saying I wanted to do personal injury. I actually wanted to do water law, weirdly
Okay.
enough, but it worked for my personality.
Awesome. Yeah, it's good when you can find that fit cohesive with the type of person that you are and what you do.
Yeah.
So maybe could you describe an ideal client for you or for your practice?
Yeah, I think an ideal client for us for the personal injury side, we also do estate planning, but
Hmm.
and that's obviously a different clientele because personal injury happens when you need it.
Yeah.
Estate planning, you're kind of like when it's appropriate to do that or when it's
Right.
strategically necessary. But for the PI, it's like I need one now because this just happened to me, whatever it is.
Hmm.
So it could be anybody from ages 1 to 99. But I think the ideal client for our firm, we are fairly small. We have 3 attorneys. We treat our clients like family. We're very high on client communication.
Hmm.
I've been accused of hand holding and kind of really walking people through the steps. That way they understand when they're making decisions, why they're making them. So
Hmm.
someone that wants that, right? And I don't know many people that wouldn't want that, but somebody that is okay really getting to understand their case, right?
Hmm.
If that makes sense. So somebody who's just kind of wanting to have representation from somebody that actually cares and is going to get in contact and communicate what's happening with the case.
Yeah,
So
it
pretty
wouldn't
broad,
be it
broad
wouldn't
brush,
be
but
like a complete delegator. Like I don't want to be involved and you just handle everything. You need to have
yeah,
that.
I mean, and obviously, if that's, I tell clients when I first meet with them, you can be as involved as you want or not involved as you want. So I guess it's just somebody that wants a kind of really good communication, really in-depth analysis of what their case needs,
Hmm.
and and somebody that's going to handle it from the start all the way through jury
Yeah.
trial if necessary.
Yeah, that's the personal side. So, do
Right.
you think there are maybe some common misconceptions that people have about what you do or what you can do for them in those
Yeah.
cases?
I think there's a lot of misconceptions about personal injury lawyers. One is that we chase ambulances and we're out to get everybody. I mean, there's a million of them, and it's something that I've been battling to my whole career,
Hmm.
trying to show people what we actually do. And so the goal of our job for you when you come to us is to make you whole, is the term,
Hmm.
no more, no less, right? And so some people think, oh, well, you're going to overreach and you're going to ask for things that you're not entitled to, and or we're going straight to trial.
Hmm.
And the reality is, if we can resolve a case without litigating, there's a lot less risk. There's a lot, it could be a lot more time efficient. So if we can, that's fantastic, as long as the client is made whole in that process. Sometimes litigation and jury trials are absolutely necessary, and it's why
Yeah.
they're there. But I would say the biggest misconception is that somehow we're overreaching and we're asking for things we're not entitled to. And I think everything that we can as a profession can ask for is based on evidence, right? And if the evidence
Yeah.
is there, then that's something the person's entitled to. And they're entitled to be made whole, which is
Hmm.
economic, non-economic, damages that arise from whatever happened. So,
Hmm.
I think that's the biggest one is and even when I first do intakes with clients, they're like, hey, I'm not looking to overreach or anything. I said, that's not what we do. Our job
Yeah.
is to say whatever you've lost is what we are attempting to regain, make you
Hmm.
whole. So,
Yeah. Right. No more, no less. I like that. That's well said. So maybe you could, for people that don't understand, maybe you could take us briefly through the steps in a personal injury case, from beginning to kind of end. And I know not all
sure.
things end in
Yeah.
litigation, right? But maybe you
Right.
could do that on a high level for us for a better understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do we break our cases up into phases.
Hmm.
It helps clients kind
That's
of, so
good.
I always say it's like running a hurdle race, right? If you look down the line of all the hurdles, you're going to trip in front of the one right in front of you. It looks really
Hmm.
ominous and overwhelming. Take it one hurdle at a time. So
Hmm.
we break our cases into phases so that we can kind of have that communication and clients know what phase they're in. So the first phase is an investigation phase where we're figuring out all of the things about the case, whatever that might be, that we need to know, right? Insurance policies, facts of the case, accident reports, photos, all that stuff. The second phase is treatment, right? So the client needs to get the treatment necessary to get as put back together as they possibly can to how they were right before the accident occurred. And that the only way you can do that medically is by treating whatever that takes. And then the third phase, if that's successful, would be attempting to negotiate some sort of a resolution to the case without filing a lawsuit, if that's possible. If we can, then we have what's called a disbursement phase, which is essentially where we're figuring out what are the client's obligations, from medical balances to health insurance liens to all the different possible things that, like loose ends that they might need to tie up before the case can truly be done. And then if we can't resolve the case, then of course litigation, right? And that has multiple phases, which I won't get into here, but essentially filing a lawsuit and then going through the various litigation phases, depositions, and maybe a mediation, and then eventually a jury trial if necessary.
Okay.
One of the phases kind of like from a real 1,000-foot view or whatever you want to say.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you. And are there some initial obstacles that you often help clients overcome as they're entering into these phases? Maybe not misconceptions, but just, this is a very emotional thing for them, I'm sure. So are there some common obstacles that you're kind of helping them, those hurdles you're kind of helping them get over as you're going through it?
Yeah, I would say the number one obstacle is just bringing it down in intensity from where they are. Because oftentimes people call after the accident and they have been in contact with 3 people, have already called them trying to get information. They don't know who they can talk to, who they should talk to, what they should say. Just taking it down, right? Right. And then walking them through, I call it my insurance 101, where I'm like, okay, this is how the process goes, right? You start with your insurance and, so forth and so on. And just trying to get our baseline back down to calm. Yeah. I would say that's like the biggest hurdle is people call and they just don't know what to do. They have no idea what the next step is. And it feels like it's all right there in front of them at that moment. I actually do a lot of speaking on what we call trauma-informed legal practice. And so going through a car wreck or having, a medical malpractice situation or a nursing home negligence, those are traumatic events. And so oftentimes the people that are coming to us are going through some form of post-traumatic, stress. And there's a lot of biological things that happen because of that. And so I've kind of identified what those are. I've become informed on what those look like and then like how I can act to help make them feel calm, safe, and in a space where they can kind of let the guard down, relax, and then now let's talk about the case. That's the biggest one. Yeah.
Right, because emotions can run high. And like you said, from some of that trauma, they may have things that they're dealing with that they've never faced before and might need professional help with that. Okay. Yep. So is there a time in a client case where it's pretty obvious that you're going to have to litigate? You know what I mean? Like they've dug their heels in, or it's obvious that you're going to have to litigate. I know that isn't the goal necessarily or where things always go, but maybe give us some enlightenment on that.
Yeah, I think the biggest reasons to litigate a case are, one, if there's a dispute on what we call liability, which is essentially they say something happened and it's because of XYZ, and our client's position is different. And for that reason, they're either splitting the responsibility pie or they're not taking any of the responsibility. And that obviously will drive you into litigation because you got to have a jury of your peers decide who did what. Another one would be pre-existing medical conditions that were worsened or aggravated from the wreck. Oftentimes there's big disputes about that where, potentially the other side is saying, we obviously understand they're going through something, but we don't think we caused that, right? Or we don't think we worsened that. And our client may be saying that they did. That's another big one that sends us into litigation. And then the other would be just disputing over damages, like future care, right? Like if a client needs future medical treatment and the other side's not willing to to cover that, or don't feel that it's necessary or related or reasonable, that might be something we need to fight about too.
Yeah.
So those are like the three big ones. Obviously, every case is different and every case has their own reasons, but those are the big ones.
Yeah. Well, and that's that's the excitement part, where everything's different all the time and the laws are changing.
Right.
There's no two cases that are exactly the same, or what might influence them. Okay. So then along those lines, then what do you consider, Patrick, to be a good outcome for a client? I don't mean like the monetary award or whatever, but what are you striving for? What do you consider to be a good outcome for them?
Well, I go back to my point I made about making the client whole. And obviously, everybody's going to have a different definition of what being made whole looks like, especially from what we call general damages or non-economic damages like pain and suffering, kind of frustrations of this process, effects on your daily living. Those are wildly different between every client. Because everybody lives different lifestyles and everyone has different injuries that affect them differently. So a good outcome obviously covers any related and necessary medical bills, so that the client doesn't have to come out of pocket for that because they didn't cause it, and then are able to compensate them for those other, less concrete damages like medical bills, exactly down to the penny how much they are.
Right.
But the other damages are something that ebb and flow. And for some clients, it ebbs and flow from week to week, depending on what their injury is. So it's just a matter of making sure that there is fair compensation for that. And I would say, as long as you can pay the medical bills and there is reasonable compensation for that, that is a great outcome.
Okay. All right. Thank you. No, that's very well said. So moving forward, let's kind of shift gears. I have a couple more questions for you. So Absolutely. What do you kind of see as your biggest opportunity moving forward? So opportunity for the practice, for the law firm, that you're excited about?
I would say, so we have a second brick and mortar location in Lakewood Ranch. That's really exciting. I'm from Lakewood Ranch. I went to Lakewood Ranch school. So getting back there is really, really exciting for me. And we are, our main office, which has been, Charlie, my boss, has had this Wesley Chapel office for we're in our 20th year. And so Wesley Chapel and Lakewood Ranch are very similar. They are very booming, a lot of families. And so they're very similar dynamics. And so I'm excited about the prospect of growing that Lakewood Ranch office.
Okay. And then maybe on the flip side of that, what's a obstacle or something that you're hoping to overcome going forward that you want to tackle?
Well, I mean, in the state of Florida, we have a lot of bills that are being passed. I won't get too into the politics on it, but there's a lot of bills that involve tort reform. And obviously our goal is to make sure that our clients are able to be made whole and are compensated. So just becoming aware of the new rules and making sure we understand what to do with them. That's an obstacle. Yeah,
things are always changing. That happens in our business too. They change the laws or make things different. And then that,
I mean, it's part of it. And it's just a matter of adapting and learning what the new ones look like.
Right. Yeah, being informed for sure. Okay, so if people want to get in touch with you or learn more about you or your practice, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can go on our website. It's spinnerlawfirm.com. You can always call me, 813-991-5099, or email me, which is Patrick, like my name. I'm sorry, no, it's not. It's P, like Patrick, Barnes, Barnes, at spinnerlawfirm.com.
Okay.
It's the best way to get in touch with me. Oh, you can Google us.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And I'm also really active on LinkedIn. I talk a lot about the lawyer mental health stuff on LinkedIn. So you can always just Google or LinkedIn, search my name, Patrick Barnes.
All right. Awesome. Yeah. I spent some time on the website. Lots of good information there. So I encourage everybody to do that. Patrick, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here with me today. It was a good conversation.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening and watching the Confident Retirement Podcast, brought to you by LPF Advisors, where we're hoping to raise the financial confidence of everyday people to another level, one show at a time. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, listening. Be well, take care, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again, Patrick.
Thanks, Chris.
You've been listening to the Confident Retirement Podcast with Kris and Mark from LPF Advisors. For more information on them and retiring confidently, please visit lpfadvisors.com. If your ears are pleased and your mind is now at ease, do share the program with your friends and subscribe wherever podcasts are found.